And welcome back to the To Be Better show.
Oh, I felt it in my soul.
You were waiting for it.
Podcast.
Yeah, well, that's because the last 3 times I've done it. So this is not the podcast. This is the short videos that we are making answering questions that would take too long in the podcast had we been recording one.
Yes.
We have done a couple of these so far. We're going to continue to do some more. So welcome to the show with the Chris's.
That makes me so happy to hear.
All right. So I'm going to just jump into this. For those of you who have not watched the other videos, we're trying not to say like in the F word. Mm-hmm. And I am trying not to interject as much so that you have more time to talk because people like to hear your voice.
Blows my mind.
So I'm going to ask you the question and let you answer, and then I will jump in if I feel I want to.
Okay.
What advice would you give to someone who tries to communicate with their spouse about how they feel? The spouse says that they understand and they will work on it, but continues to do the same cycle. He tends to just tell you what you want to hear, but doesn't actually have the intent of correcting the behavior because he doesn't agree with it. I feel like a radio talk show because he does not agree with it.
That was really good. So that comment infuriates me.
How so?
So we don't know this. You don't know these people.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
That is correct.
So let's just take that as 100% fact. He doesn't care because he doesn't view it the same.
Right.
And he's just telling her what she wants to hear. That makes me want to throat punch him.
Why you always resort to violence? This is why I do dishes, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
A metaphorical throat punch.
Okay.
I'm going to verbally throat punch him.
Then have at it.
How disrespectful. Like, I feel like that is, pandering's not the right word. It's not. But that's the only thing that comes to my mind. You're going to tell me what I want to hear and then do the exact opposite? Taking advantage isn't even the right word for that.
I always go as far as to say that it's invalidating.
It is invalidating, but it's like, you really think I'm that stupid? Like,
I mean, in this scenario, she does, or he does, because he's continuing to do the same thing.
and she's allowing it.
She's allowing it. That's where I was going to go with this.
So the first time something like that happens, it could be like a miscommunication, right?
Right.
Second time that happens, you take note of that. Third time that happens, that's a pattern. That person is showing you that they do not care. So you have one of two options. Well, you could have more than these two options, but for me, it's one of two options in this scenario. First option, I'm going to call you on your shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, I have noticed this. I come to you with a problem. I feel like you don't care about my feelings. You tell me one thing and your actions show another. We have to resolve this. Or I'm going to take my shit, I'm going to leave. I do not do well with being treated like I am below somebody.
Right.
And I 100% feel like that's what that scenario is. In the scenario that this is actually happening, he thinks so highly of himself and so little of her, he's like, I'm just going to keep doing this because she lets me get away with it. There is never a repercussion.
That's it. That's the answer. She lets him get away with it.
Right.
And there's never repercussion. This is a manipulation tactic. This is exactly what that is. This comes down to 70 upwards to 80% of communication is nonverbal. Mm-hmm. So somebody telling you what you want to hear doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Words are wind, as they say in Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. Like, this is not, he is manipulating the situation to get you to stop talking. That's really what it comes down to. He's telling you what you want to hear because he doesn't want to hear you talk anymore. And because he disagrees with it and he's not willing to make changes, he doesn't care about you.
Right.
If you came to me with a problem, even if it was something that I thought was just the most asinine thing ever, but I knew it bothered you, I would validate you first. I would empathize with what's going on. I'm sorry I didn't realize I was making you feel that way. That must really suck. I'm really sorry. I will do my best to make sure that this doesn't happen again. After we've had the conversation and it's done, in my head, I'm gonna be like, that was the dumbest thing that we've ever had a conversation over, but I know that she needs me to make a change to make her happy, so I'm going to do what I can to make that happen. We've had this discussion numerous times. I get a ton of shit over it. Me saying things are dumb or saying things are stupid is not me invalidating you. It's because I don't want to have fights or arguments over things that are so minor that it shouldn't be a thing for me. So if you say, it really bothers me when you don't turn your socks the right way before I throw them in the washer. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. They're going to get clean one way or the other. But because it bothers you, I'm going to do it. In my head, I'm like, that's the dumbest argument we've ever had. But I know that it bothers you, so I'm going to make sure that my socks are flipped the right way to avoid having that dumb argument ever again. And it's not that your feelings are dumb. It's that I don't want to fight over dumb things. Like,
So I'm going to ask you a question.
okay,
Why do you feel like me coming to you about something that bothers me is an argument?
past trauma.
So that's a you thing.
It is absolutely 100% a me thing.
Okay, so I want to clarify that because I've noticed in the last few podcasts or whatever we've done, oh no, now I'm calling them all podcasts. I did the thing.
It is past trauma.
Right.
I own that 100%. I am not used to having somebody just come to me when there's something that makes them unhappy without blowing up and shitting on me over it.
So I think that clarification is important for the people who go, wow, he's saying that that's dumb. That's wrong
That's a
towards
good
her.
point. That is a
So
good point.
pointing out that that's a trauma for you and that's 100% a you thing takes away that he's mistreating her. It's just a viewpoint from how you've experienced in the past because you've never had someone just come to you and say like, hey, this bothers me. Can we correct it? It's always been an argument for you.
Yeah, it's been an attack. That was really smart, babe.
Yeah.
You're fucking hot when you're you're hot anyways, but damn it, when you make good points, like, can we end this podcast?
Yeah, let's pause it.
That's a very good point, and it's not something that I've actually thought about. But it you've said things to me, and you're like, "Hey, I need to have a conversation." I'm like, "Fuck, that was an intentional f-bomb," because that's
Right.
how
That's how
I
you
feel
feel.
sometimes when you come at me with things like that. And most of the time, I'm like, "Why did you even start the conversation like that?" Because it's so insignificant that
Because
I'd
if
just
I
been
don't
like,
start the
"Cool."
conversation like that, you feel like I'm attacking you.
Not always. If you were like, "Hey, can you flip your socks inside out from now on?" or right way out, or however I worded that earlier.
Right. But I don't come to you with things like that.
I know that.
I come to you about things that you could legit feel like I'm attacking you over.
Right.
So when I start a conversation the way I start it, it's to prevent that attacking feeling. But
Right.
it seems like no matter how I approach it, you feel like you're attacked due to past trauma.
Yeah. I'm working on it.
I know. And you're doing a really good job. I've noticed the change.
I don't remember what I was talking about now. It's gone.
You were talking about
You want to start this one over?
why?
I don't know. Because I don't remember what I was talking about. My thought process completely derailed because you called me on my shit. Now I feel like I have to take accountability.
That wasn't the purpose of that. It was
a good point.
Right.
I fucking kudos to you. I didn't, that's not something I've ever correlated. I've never once correlated the way that I respond to you correcting things that bother you as a me thing. I know that I have to make a concerted effort to not get defensive when you say things to me because I am so used from not just past relationships, but from my childhood.
Right.
Being told how fucking stupid I am, how I'm never going to be anything, like the degrading life that I've had over and over and over again. And don't get me wrong, not every relationship has been that way, but when you
Right.
have more often than not that's the case,
it messes you up.
right, you know that you are messed up as a person, and I know
Right.
that. But to think things like, it's just a really good point. I don't know. There's a lot to process.
I don't want you to cut that out of the podcast because there are people out there that could be doing the same exact thing you are
Right.
and not even realize it.
Yeah.
But you were talking about in the comment about how something could be stupid to him. It's a big thing for her.
Right. So, okay. So, and that's why you called me on it because
Right.
to me, I don't want to have fights or arguments over things that I don't see as fight worthy. And I guess in that aspect, really what it comes down to is not invalidating your feelings, but trying to avoid conflict. It's conflict avoidance. I don't want to fight with you.
Right.
It takes a lot for me to feel like I want to engage you in something on like, and I don't want to call it hostile grounds, but when you are engaging somebody in heated discussion, you do sometimes come at them with hostility. And I've tried to never do that because I don't want to treat you that way. So when you come at me and I feel like I'm being attacked or something like this is happening and I'm like, that's stupid. That's because this is so
It's minuscule to you.
minuscule. I don't want to have, that's much better than dumb. It's a much better word than dumb. It's so minuscule that I don't want to argue over these things.
Right. Like you have so much going on in your life.
Right. That this is a non-issue for me. You just
Right.
tell me you need me to take care of whatever it is and I'll get it done. Like I'll make a concerted effort to make sure that that's handled and great.
Right.
Moving on. Next. That's how I view things. And I guess I absolutely could word that better, especially for somebody who's so intentional with the things they say. Minuscule just never came to my mind. Dumb always comes to my mind because of the way that I use that term.
Tell me I have a sexy brain.
You have a sexy brain.
Oh, thank you.
I just got schooled on my own podcast. I'm going to have to start sending in questions for you to answer.
Oh, yeah. So this is probably gonna be like the last thing I talk about on this subject,
Okay.
but I wanted to bring up a scenario. So I'm a stay-at-home wife. You're the businessman.
Mm-hmm.
The big things for me inside of the household is nothing compared to the big things of what you do with the businesses.
That's how you view it, though. See, I feel the opposite. Well, go
Really?
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so-
I'll get back to that because this is an important conversation that I've wanted to have on the podcast.
So inside of the house, the most stressful thing for me would be like the days that I sweep and mop the entire house. That's like a 4 or 5 hour ordeal.
Right.
That is the biggest thing I have to take care inside of the house. That is like one of my biggest stressors in my life. And one of the biggest stressors you have right now is trying to get one of the businesses back up and running after Hurricane Ian.
Right.
Me mopping and sweeping the house is nothing compared to the stress that you're dealing with that. But if I come to you and I'm like, hey, babe, like this is really hard for me, it's minuscule to you. But to me, like that's the biggest thing in my life I have going on,
Right.
you know? Does that make sense? Does that sound stupid?
No, it doesn't. I get
Okay.
exactly what you're saying because that is your biggest stressor.
Right.
But what I'm getting at, what I was going to say is, yes, I handle the business and the finances and all of those things, and I have big stressors, but those don't negate what you do in the house.
Right, I know.
And I'm not, obviously, that's not the conversation that we're having right now, but my big stressors and having you here makes my big stressors not that big of a deal. Like if I had to come home and worry about everything in the house while still worrying about the businesses because I've lived that life, it makes me want to unalive myself.
Right.
Like I get so overwhelmed and so caught up in everything that's going on that I truly believe that it would be easier if I just didn't exist. Right? Because I get so overwhelmed and so tired of everything. And that was my life for like 6 years. I had had enough. I didn't want to do this anymore. But walking away from everything and starting over is also not an option because even though I know I can, because I've started over multiple times in life and managed to reach different levels of success every time. And now I have the formula. Like it'd be a lot easier for me to come back from that. I don't want to start over ever again. So knowing that I'm not going to step on something in the house with my bare feet. You know how I am about my feet. Like if I'm wearing socks and they get wet, I'll panic. If I feel sand on the bottom of my feet in the house, I will panic. There are a lot of things that will freak me out when it comes to my feet. So like, and I used to have house slippers. I don't have house slippers at all because you keep the house clean. I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
But knowing that I can worry about what's going on outside of the house and not have to factor in anything that goes on inside of the house is massive.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that I have a bigger picture than you or a heavier workload. You have your workload is your workload.
Right. We have different stresses.
Right. But knowing that I don't have to deal with any of this makes my stresses significantly less.
Right.
So I guess the reason I brought that up is because you said that like I have these massive stressors and your biggest deal is having to worry about the house being clean. That doesn't negate that's your stress.
Right.
And that was my point. That's why I
Yeah.
said we need to talk about this because I know that I have to deal with my shit regardless. You have to deal with your shit regardless. And if I'm having a bad day, I will still come to you about my bad day. It doesn't negate that you're having a bad day. It doesn't add to your bad day because we have separated our jobs. But if I looked at the house or if I looked at my role as more important than your role and you came to me with something, I'd be like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't matter, whatever. And I don't do that. I know what you do and I know the effect that it has on my life. So if you were like, hey, today sucked. I boiled water for 4 hours and then mopped the entire house and all this. And I would listen. I would validate it all. Like, damn, babe, that sucks. I'm sorry that you had to do that, but I appreciate it. And like, I'm going to walk around barefoot for the next 3 days and not have to worry about anything touching my feet because you're a gangster. It doesn't negate that you had a bad day just because I have what you thought was a higher stress scenario.
Right. My example wasn't to negate anything.
Okay.
There are, like in our dynamic, people who live the lives that we do. The man could feel like because he handles things outside of the household, his stress is more valid than her stress.
That's not though.
Right.
That's what I was getting at.
I
Like,
know, but
okay.
my point is my stresses inside the house are valid. Even though I'm not handling hundreds of thousands of dollars and making businesses run,
Right.
I'm running a household. This is my life. I don't do anything outside of this. I don't work, So even though my stress of mopping for 4 hours a day is a minuscule stress, that's a big stress for me in my life and what I do as my job.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So even
I
though
think we're saying the same thing. I really do, because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I did obviously mean to cut you off because I did it, but I believe that we're saying the same thing.
right, my point is both stresses are valid.
Right.
Even though one can be not even argued that it's more stressful, but like people will try to make that argument.
That's why I said what I said, because
Right.
that's not an argument that should be had.
Yeah.
That's creating an unnecessary power struggle in the home to make you feel like you're more important than your partner in a man scenario. Well, I effing do everything outside of the house and all you do is cook and clean. It's not that hard. I've done that job. Yeah, bro, it's not that hard, but you're not doing that job right now. Somebody else is carrying that load for you, so shut the fuck up and accept it. Like, there's no reason for you to, and that F-bomb was intentional. There's no reason for you to downplay what your partner does just because you view their work as less than yours. That's bullshit. And that's why I made it a point to be like, we need to talk about this, because I don't look at what you do as less or what I do as more. I know how good I have it because you're here doing these things.
Right.
And that's the point that I'm trying to get across. So we're having the same conversation.
Yeah.
It's both about validation and not having the power struggle, but I'm trying to iterate the point of not having the power struggle. That's where we're at.
Yes.
This
So
one-
I think to sum everything up.
Final thoughts.
I hate that I didn't play one more time. That did it for me. That was like as good as like a, can I say mushrooms?
You can't, because we're not on TikTok. We could actually have that discussion too if you want to on one of these videos.
That'd be dope.
We've had a couple people ask about that.
So final thoughts on this.
I just want to push all these buttons.
That man's an ass clown. It is. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say the F word.
Go ahead. I mean, I said
That's
it a
some
couple
pure
times.
fuckery right there. Like,
I think that when we use the F word, if we use it intentionally instead of a comma or a space filler, it's more impactful, which is why I'm trying to dial it back. That my mom was like, I don't like hearing it. And I respect that woman.
I'm trying to be mindful. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to, because that's your mom, bro. I got to be respectful to your mom.
Bro.
Babe.
Neato, dude.
Sorry.
Super duper guy.
Sorry, daddy.
Oh.
So the conversation needs to be had of, I am your woman. I am not below you. I'm not beneath you. What was that pause?
I'll wait until you're done. I don't want to thought.
So that conversation needs to be had. We are equals. We are a team. If you continue to invalidate me by just saying whatever you think is going to please me in that moment and then continue to do whatever you're doing that's upsetting me, we can either correct this and live a life together, or I'm going to leave and find somebody better than you. And I would phrase it like that too. I would be petty in that moment. I deserve better than someone who's just going to people please me and then continue to hurt me.
Because of the agreement that we have and not talking about exit strategies and leaving and the D word, had you actually worded it that way and threatened to leave, I would tell you to go in that scenario. So not saying us. I prefaced that whole conversation by saying, I guess I should have said we would never have that discussion.
Right.
Is what I meant by that. I obviously left that part out. But if I was these people.
Right. If I was in that scenario.
And I was him and you were laying that down because he obviously doesn't give a shit.
Right.
I'd be like, go ahead. Because he obviously doesn't care that.
If that's brought up and if their reaction is not, no, I don't want to lose you, how can I fix this? It's already done.
Yep. All right. This one was way longer than the other ones that we did. I got called out on my shit.
But it was a learning opportunity.
Sure it was. I'm going to go cry, and then we're going to come back and answer some more questions. Kidding.
I'll lick your tears off your face for you.
Extra salty. The look I gave you a minute ago before I end this little long-ass video was because people get hung up on me referring to you as my woman. Have you noticed that?
I have not, but I call you my man, so I don't see the issue.
And I get it a lot. Why do you call her my woman? Why is she my woman? Because she's
I'm his
mine.
woman.
Like, unreal.
This is intentional. This is intentional. Get the fuck out of here with that.
Right.
I am your woman. I am your wife. I have devoted myself to you. You better take pride in calling me your woman.
Right.
Because I don't want anybody else.
Apparently, it's possessive and controlling.
I want him to be possessive of me. I do not want another woman in this world to think she has an opportunity with you.
Get him, babe. And with that being said, we'll see you next time.